Are you thinking about moving abroad and researching, trying to understand what some of the pros and cons of life abroad are? In this video, I will talk about a topic that I find often gets buried under some of the logistical conversation and some of the practical considerations that expats have to make before moving abroad. And that is the topic of relationships, and specifically the impact of a move abroad on those relationships. Hello, my name is Miia. I'm originally from Finland, but I have lived in Ireland for the last 6 years, and previously before that in some of these countries. Through these videos, I hope to encourage people such as yourself who are maybe looking into moving abroad. So I hope this will be helpful for you, and I'm very happy that you are here. So without further ado, let's jump into the video. So let's start with romantic relationships. First of all, the positive thing is what more fun of an adventure it is to be able to move abroad with your best friend. So this is all very exciting. Even though, when you move with someone, and even if you just travel with someone, you get to know that person in a very different way. So it can be a very eye-opening experience, first of all. And I hope, for you and your relationship, I hope that that's in a positive way. But whatever happens, if you're able to move abroad with someone, go through all the stress and the challenge and the potential turmoil, if you are able to go through that with someone, then you will come out the other end as an even stronger couple. So it's always a fun experience to do something like that with your favorite person. But here are just a couple of pitfalls or things to keep in mind if you are going with someone that you've built a relationship with before wanting to become an expat and moving abroad. So first of all, and I talked about this more in a previous video, which I will link at the end and in the description box. But I talked about this phenomenon or the sensation of hitting the wall right after you've moved abroad. Maybe sort of 1 to 3 months in, you kind of realize, well, what have I done? And I can pretty much guarantee you that you will go through it, and also your partner will go through it. Now, where the challenge comes in is that you and your partner, even if you love each other, even if you've known each other for years, you might be going through the process of hitting the wall and that culture shock at very different stages or different paces. And you might be triggered and annoyed and frustrated about different types of things as well. So there's a high chance for not understanding fully what the other person is going through and how they are experiencing that new life situation. So while you might be sort of getting onto the upper sort of direction, like you have already processed through the culture shock and you're sort of in the adaptation stage, your partner might still be struggling with something, and they might be going through this process either slower or faster than you are. So in this stage, there is a lot of potential for misunderstanding, and even little things can become big things if we don't talk about it. The communication is really important. If you do not communicate about these frustrations and thoughts and feelings, then it's very easy to kind of stuff them up, and resentment starts to build, frustration starts to build, and that just kind of starts a vicious negative cycle that may be harder and harder to get out of. That's why I would say communication is absolutely key when you are moving with someone abroad, and especially key the longer you've known that person. Because I think sometimes we kind of start assuming things based on thinking, I know how they feel, I know how they think, they would surely communicate, they would tell me if they were struggling with something. But I think that's where the bigger danger is, when you start assuming based on how long you know a person. Because when we're plucked into such a different environment, we sort of may not react the way we normally would if we were in our regular life, normal circumstance. So do communicate, even though that is such a cheesy sort of advice to give, but it is so true. Like, do not keep things inside, even if it feels difficult to talk about it. That'll put you in a better place and a healthier place as a couple if you're able to talk about your struggles, your frustrations, your feelings. And also talk about the good stuff. Gratefulness never hurt anyone. Gratefulness also has this power of quickly shutting down the negative thinking patterns, because it's hard to be thankful and stressed at the same time. So good to have a bit of both. My second point is just to emphasize how important the first point is. Like, that's how important it is. You really need to watch out for each other, especially in the first months of having relocated, especially if you've known each other for a long time. And here I would recommend that you don't just wait for the other person to start talking. Like, I would recommend you to just be proactive, especially if you're the one who's doing better with the relocation. If you find yourself happier and less stressed as the other person, do show proactively that you see them, that you care for them. You can ask them all those questions, like, how are you really doing? I think that'll really help your partner out, even especially if they are really struggling in that moment, to understand that you see them, that they're not alone. Because the moving, it can already feel like such a lonely place. You feel like such a stranger. And then if you feel like your partner is also like drifting further apart from you, that can only make things work. So really take care of each other, and do take this seriously as well. Like, I know people who have moved abroad, who are expats, who kind of got really close to the other person wanting to separate because they just could not understand what's going on in the other person's mind. And it was this exact stage of like a few months to a year in to a international relocation. So do take it seriously, please, and take care of each other when you move together abroad. And the third point is, do show appreciation to your partner, especially if they have had to make a big career sacrifice to enable this relocation, and maybe a career step for the other person, for who's the reason for the move, or whose job or whose profession is the reason for that relocation. I know in a lot of visa situations, it is not possible for the other person to move. So sometimes one of you just kind of has to make that sacrifice. But it's really good to remember again and again to be thankful for that, for the person who gave up their career or took a break, because it is a really big thing. And again, if you don't do it, if sort of the thankfulness is not there, it can again start growing that resentfulness and frustration in the other person. Yeah, going back to the communication again, it is so important. So if you are in the process of thinking about, would I want to move abroad? Just be absolutely 100% sure that your partner is okay with doing the sacrifice if they do have to stop working for visa reasons, or if for another reason they have to relocate, even if they were maybe quite happy in the previous place. So it is a big thing. Like, for some of us, moving abroad and moving in general is just a very easy peasy lemon squeezy sort of situation, but it is a really big thing. And it's good to remember that you go through a lot mentally in that process. And if on top of that, you have to give up your career or say goodbye to your colleagues when you didn't really want to, that can be tough. So just make sure that your partner is 100% with you, willing to make the sacrifice and kind of gives up the right to nag about it further down the line, because that just is kind of like that's where the resentment lives, and really good things cannot come out of that. So whatever your situation is, I recommend that you seek for wisdom, seek for advice from other people, and set your priorities straight as well. Like, if you know that a move abroad will make or even break your relationship, then do you really want to go? Like, I think you need to be in the same boat with your partner if you want to go through this kind of big life-changing transition. So, potential new relationships. This is a juicy topic, and I love talking about this because I'm living it. You know, I moved abroad, I met someone, and now I live in a very international relationship, or just kind of very intercultural, shall I say. And it has, it's great. Best decision I ever made. So I can't really do I couldn't tell anyone not to do it, because I did it and it turned out great. But it is good to be careful as well. So here are just a few things you should keep in mind before you jump into a relationship with a person who is not from the same country or culture as you are. So if you end up getting together or marrying someone from a different country, just be mindful of what that means for your whole future. So the first thing is, of course, when you come from a different culture, you have very different understanding of how things are done, and that always has the potential for misunderstandings and challenges. So it's just something to keep in mind and prepare yourself, because it's not just that you talk things through and then they never come up again. Like, the intercultural challenges, if you're together with someone who's not from your own culture, they will come up in different situations, in different ways, different levels, again and again and again. And it's not a bad thing. I'm not saying that as, don't ever get together with someone from a different country, but it is something to realize and prepare for mentally. And I think if you're aware of those things, you will be able to function better as a couple if you are aware of each other's cultures and habits. Don't jump into anything without being completely sure, and also without understanding fully that person's family and family culture. That's also a huge thing. Especially if you're going to be living, if you have family in different countries, you want to make sure that you can get along with family, and that the differences that there are unavoidably through the different cultures and habits, that they are ones that you can actually live with. Like, if you get together with someone and it's all new and exciting, it's easy to jump into things, but that's difficult enough when you have a sort of shared cultural understanding. But if it's a different cultural understanding, it can get even more difficult. So just be careful, just be mindful, guard your heart, don't jump into anything too quickly. Another thing is just to consider before you start an international or intercultural relationship is that your families will likely always be in different countries. So just as an example, you will likely spend a lot of your vacations and holidays visiting either of your family. And you just got to be ready to do that, because if you don't see them during holidays, then when are you going to see them? And as a third thing, if you get together and you want to have kids, so just be mindful of the national identity or the identity of your children. It will be very different than what you had when you grew up in one country with one sort of family influence. You will likely, as the mother or the father, have a lot more of a clear understanding of your identity and the sort of where you are coming from. But then if you get children as an intercultural couple, the kids might struggle with that a little bit. Like, they may hold 1 to 3 passports, but not really feel like they are at home anywhere or part of any kind of country. So that's just a little something to keep in mind. Now let's talk about how your connection and relationship with family members might change when you move abroad. Naturally, likely the distance to your family will grow, and that can often lead to some expressions of frustration or sadness or fears from your extended family, like parents, siblings, cousins, etc. And if you are particularly close to your family, this will be particularly difficult for you. Even if people don't want to give you guilt from moving abroad, we very easily start feeling that way, even unprompted. Here, I think it's very important to be aware of your why. Why are you moving? The clearer you have your why within you, even if you never share it with anyone, it will guide all of your decisions. And that will also help you stay firm with what your plan is when this happens, when people start questioning your decisions, when they start showing frustration or sadness. If you know that this is the best move for you, then that's, the direction you have to go. Yeah, this can be really tough when, especially if you get negative feedback from your family. And with that, especially the relationship between, let's say, your parents or the grandparents of your children and the kids, that will be very much challenged. So, and probably a little bit more distant, and that can be a challenge. Of course, there can always be visiting, stuff like that. There's ways to nurture those relationships also long distance, but yeah, it is just something to put on the scale and see if it's something that you can live with. And of course, like, we feel this very viscerally now after having children and not having family close by. Like, it's crazy how much of a difference it makes when you have family nearby, being able to help you take care of children. So we didn't really feel the distance to the family as much before kids, but now that we've had kids, we really do feel it in a different way. So just saying, if you're thinking about these things, don't underestimate how much more on your own you will be with children in particular when you move abroad. For the final part, let's talk about old and new friendships. With your old and currently already existing friendships, your relocation or move abroad will definitely challenge the dynamics, and it will be a bit of a test, especially if you're sort of a social butterfly and you have a lot of friends and acquaintances. Then definitely you will learn who are your loyal friends when you move away, and you're not just there always easily accessible physically, but friends have to really make an effort, and you have to make an effort to connect with your friends back home. And the people who you do stay in contact with, like, these are true tested with fire sort of relationships. And those are usually the people that you can't shake them, even if you want to. Like, and I say that in a positive sense, like, these are your truly good friends. And so in that sense, it can be kind of a healthy process to go through. For people moving abroad for just a short amount of time, it can feel very tempting to take a more no new friends kind of approach. And looking back, this was certainly my initial mistake when we moved to Ireland, because at first we were just supposed to be in Ireland for 1 year. And so I thought, look, I don't want to go through the whole make new friends, awkward stage, and then being sad to leave kind of whole process and situation. Because when we arrived to Ireland, before that we had just lived 2 years in Cyprus, and before that we had lived 3 years in Vienna. It had been just a lot of moving, making new friends, leaving again, kind of thing. But it really made my first year to even 3, maybe even longer, like, it just made my first years in Ireland a little bit more miserable than they had to be. And so that's why I would recommend, even if you maybe go somewhere with the mindset of it being short term, to still try to make friends and connect with people, because on one hand, it makes it then more difficult to leave. But on the other hand, if you don't have those connections and friends while you are in a new place, it just makes your time and your experience as an expat so much more valuable and memorable and meaningful. And I know it can be so frustrating and awkward to try to make friends as an adult. I can relate so well. But there are a few strategies that you can do to try to reduce the awkwardness, even if you can't fully remove it. Or there are ways to make the process feel a little bit more natural and easy. My first tip is you can try to connect with people through either in-person or online expat or other international communities. I know a lot of people would prefer to make local contacts, but the thing is, when you connect with people who are in the same situation as you, it is a bit more natural and easier, because you have sort of a shared understanding of a few things, and you more likely share similar life experiences as well. While, of course, especially if you have a more long-term perspective, it is helpful to have local connections. But if you're looking for speed, if you need to make friends fast, I would focus on connecting with other expats, other international background people, because those people, even if it's, by the way, local people who are used to being in international communities, they are usually quicker at making and building friendships. So it's easier and quicker to make them. So especially for those, if you're just thinking about staying for a short time, this is definitely something I would prioritize at first. My second tip is start a hobby, something that you enjoy doing. That is one of the best ways to meet like-minded people. Also just get something that feels familiar for you yourself as you are in a new environment. And the third, this is also pretty obvious, like it's easier to make friends through work. That's where you more naturally meet people, get to know people. But another thing I would add would be religious activity, religious organizations. If you're part of a religion or a church, that also kind of connects quickly across cultures, and other sort of likes. Like if you have a certain type of music you like, a music community or other kind of community like that you feel that you are part of, then those are good places to seek for like-minded people. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please be sure to give it a like and subscribe so you don't miss out on future videos. It was great to hang out with you today, and I hope to see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.